Okay, here's your tutorial on making a leak-free oil-filled cell. And I have a couple of different samples here, different sizes. These are all sold by Boston Craft Works. This is one that it's designed after the Boston Craft Works style, but I made these. I had my own injection machine. So this is what I use the most of. One of the big differences between mine and theirs is I drill a hole. If you can see, I drill a hole in the side to fill it with oil. And I cover this surface up. This is where the cover piece goes. Okay, now there's a couple of tricks to this that'll make all the difference, especially if you are going to make from acrylic tubing, where you have to glue two flat pieces on, and you want one to be as invisible as possible. It should be as invisible as that. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we get. So we'll go from there. The very first step of anything is to take this. Let me get me a pointer out here. Is to make sure this surface, the surface that's going to mate to your cover piece, is absolutely defect free. Now, if it's going to be a hidden surface, then all you really need to do is run it. I'm using 220 here. That's all you need to do for. See, there's no defects. There's no nicks, no scratches, no dents, dings, divots, any of that crap. Now, this one has nothing. Here's one that's straight out of the, I don't know if you can see that line? That has to go away. So, rotate it a little bit. Wipe it off and see. Nope, still there. You can use wet or dry sandpaper attached to a piece of glass with water if you want to. I don't have a piece of glass. I couldn't find my piece of glass. And this is the only piece of sandpaper I have. It's going away. It's getting there. It's pretty good. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. All right. You get the idea. Now, if you are going to make a hidden where it doesn't show up, you have to take this to the next, take this several more steps and use finer and finer sandpaper until you get 7, 8,000, 12,000 if you can get it. When you get to say 8,000 or so, switch to polish. I'll send you a link for for the polish. I'll send you the Amazon link for polish. It's just 3 bottles of polish. It's got a number 1, number 2, and number 3. And I believe you start out with the number 3 with the coarse. Until the trick is that you need it to be as smooth and clear as the rest of the cell, because when you glue it, it'll disappear. Do not use any kind of wax-based polish on it at all. And you can wipe it down with alcohol when you're done with your polish. Excuse me. Anyway, that's what you have to do, especially if it's going to be seen. You're going to have to take and polish that thing as good as you get it. Now, when it comes to the hole in the side, preparation for putting oil in, you do this before you put any objects in it, before you seal it up. This is what I use, because it's a taper drill bit. I can sneak up on the diameter of that hole, because this is what I plug the hole up. Clear acrylic rod. It's the same size as this hole. Well, it needs to be quite a bit bigger than that. Ream it, puppy out. Keep on going. This is not a race to do these. If you get in a hurry, you'll get a leaker. I normally do this with an electric drill, but I have yet to get another electric drill since I moved. It's getting close. It's easier with the drill. Come on. With a drill, electric drill, you won't have to fight this. And I have come to the conclusion, I do this size because this is as big as I can take and manage with this sail. But you have to be careful when you put oil in it, or you'll contaminate that hole and it won't glue. Keep reaming that hole until you can get that rod in there. I'm going to pause you for just a... Okay, I'm back. The other thing about a taper drill, there we go. It's in there now. You don't want it any looser than that if you're using a small rod, but it'll work. But like I was saying, I've come to the conclusion, but this is the smallest hole, the biggest hole I can put in this sail. But if I was doing a sail this size and had a longer boss here, I would probably make the sail with the big, wider flange here so I could put a bigger hole in it. I could go up a little bit on this, but not much. Anyway, so now talking about putting a cover on this thing. These are some discs that I had laser cut for me. I don't like using them. I don't like them because they're so heavy. so thick. I usually use just 1/16 plexiglass on these. It just goes on. It's a little bit oversized. After I get it done and it sits up good, then I grind it down smooth. Now, I'm gonna pause you again for just a second. And I'm back. I had to go put some glue in this little bottle. Well, I didn't put very much in there. You don't need very much for what I'm doing. When you buy this solvent, buy one of these bottles with this little applicator tip. This is absolutely essential for working with this. Now, the adhesive I'm using is number 4 Fast Set Clear Water Thin Solvent. It's for acrylics, butyrate, polycarbonate, and styrene. And it shows it's got a working time of 1 to 2 minutes, fixture time 3 minutes, and 80% strength at 72 hours. I always let this stuff sit for 4 days before I do anything else. Once I put that glue on it, it sits for 4 days. If I clamp it, I'll take it out of the clamp in 5 minutes. But I don't put any oil in it. I don't fiddle with it. Don't do anything until for 4 days. And like I said, I've never had a leaker. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull this other plastic. I normally wouldn't pull both sides of this off, but so that you can see how it works. This glue, and this is the reason why you have to have the best possible mating surface, is because this stuff works with capillary action. You'll see it. Pretty amazing stuff. Come off of there, you blasted thing. It's been around for a while and the paper sticks a little bit too much. There we go. It's a little bit thick. Now, you can see, I don't know if you can see where it mates. It's flat and it's on there. Now, you do this part after you put your objects in. I don't have any objects to put in here, so I'm just going to seal this up. After you put your objects in here, you put this cover on. And I hope you can see the capillary action. Can you see it? You don't see that matte surface anymore that I sanded flat. It's gone. That is a good bond. There's no air bubbles. There's no gaps. There's nothing wrong with that. That will not leak ever. Now in 4 days, you can put oil in this. And how you put oil in it, this is a syringe I got this from Tractor Supply, any veterinary supply. I cut the point off. Can you see that? It's no longer pointed. There's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, I don't want to get stuck with it. If it falls and rolls into my lap, I don't need a silicone injection. Plus, it hurts at this big old needle. I mean, I want to say that's a 12 or a 10 gauge, whatever it is. It's thick. The oil barely comes out of it and barely goes into it. Now, I'm not going to put, because this hadn't set long enough, I'm not going to put oil in it. Whenever I go, I'll wait a few days and I'll put oil in it, but I'm going to demonstrate for you, and I'll show you that. But I'm going to demonstrate it. I have a little fixture that I set these in to fill them, to hold this thing absolutely still. And you have to, after you put oil in it, suck oil, because you have to suck oil up out of a container. Take alcohol in a rag and clean this tip. After you get oil in it, take and suck an air bubble in it and clean this tip. You suck air bubble in it so that when you tip it like this, nothing drips out. Excuse me. So anyway, I'm going to use this as a sample of, I've got oil in this. This is a delicate operation. If you screw up and touch the side of that hole with oil, even though you washed it, and you start injecting oil in it, you have to be careful so that you don't touch that side. There was a little bit of oil left in that needle, and I touched the side. If I normally, I wouldn't. I just throw this away because there's odds are it'll leak. I'm gonna take a little bit of alcohol and hopefully that'll be enough. This is why, as I get older, I want a bigger hole. You see, there's no, I hope you can see it. There's no gaps. There's no matte surface. That would probably disappear enough with just 220, but I would go as high as you can go, and just you'll have to experiment and see what works best for you. Anyway, that's once I cut a piece of acrylic rod. Find one that's got alcohol on it. And wipe it down. You can file that or sand that point tip if you don't want it to, if it's critical. No, I don't do it because they don't ever show up. Okay, now we're going to stick this thing in here. You can see it's just inside it just a little bit. And I'm going to take this solvent, this adhesive, and you can once it's set up for a little while, you can snip that off. Don't snip it off too close. And then take a jeweler's file and file it down. And when you get that file down, they can put another coat, put a little bit more of that glue on the end of that rod, that clear rod. Now, can you see that? This is solvent-based adhesive, so it's going to be soft for a day. And that, how you make a leak-free cell. And when I'm finally done assembling all of my cells, I put them. This needs to set. It takes about a week or so, 4 days to let this set, and 4 days to let that set. So you're looking at 8 days, at least a week. Like I said, there's no hurry on this, because if you hurry, they'll leak. Trust me, I know. Now, once you get it all assembled and ready, and the glue set good, I put them on. I take paper towel and I stack them all, line them up all where the oil is covering all those glue joints. And I go back in a week. If I have a leaker, it gets thrown out. I'll break it up and take the objects out of it. I won't recover the oil. I won't try to recover the oil because it's contaminated. But I throw the rest of it away. I don't throw very many of them away at all. So now, if you're working with an acrylic tube, which you can probably be better off working with the acrylic tube, because that way you don't have to mess with vacuum forming or buying from a cell from somebody. But you do, it's just the same exact procedure. Clean that, true that edge up. Try to use about the same thickness cover as you do as the thickness of the tubing. Unless you're using like 1/4 inch thick acrylic tubing, there's no need to use a 1/4 inch thick plate on it. Now, whenever, and this will apply to the same thing. See how this is a little bit oversized? It needs to be, I'll grind it down. I've got a pad that I used to put on my grinder, on my sander, my disc sander. It was felt that I'd sit down and I'd take in. It's hard with this because of this, got this. But if you have a straight cell with no flange on it, it's easier. And you'll see how this has got a rounded, whenever you sand this down to get it the edge flush with this, put you a round over on this. And you get your plastic polish. This is where your plastic polish comes in. You sand this as finer and finer and finer with wet and dry sandpaper in your hand till you get it down to at least 8,000. And take your polish and start with the coarsest of the polishing. Do it by hand. Don't put it on a Dremel or anything, because you don't need to. You just build up heat, and heat makes this acrylic do what they call crazing. You won't see it until it's too late, because as soon as you hit it with that solvent, in a day or two, you'll see the little spider cracks in it from the heat. So don't use power. and then seal it up, put your stuff in it, seal it up, just like this. This is probably set up enough for me to trim this. Ouch. Now, normally I would wait, but I'm going to show you how to. I don't know if you can see that. I put enough on there to, and that sealed up that end of that acrylic rod. If you happen to get glue, this glue will run out on this surface sometimes. Just take and sand it down and polish it out. If you get a nick in these, sand it down till the nick is gone, finer and finer and finer, and then polish it out. And they'll never know. You'll never know. You won't be able, if you do it right, you'll never be able to find that spot again. So, now, this comes from Amazon. You get it a lot of places. I mean, MasterCard, a lot of different places. I just get it from Amazon. This is silicone. It's pure silicone oil. This is the thinnest that Boston Craft Works has. You're better off just buy it from him because he buys it by the 55-gallon barrel. And then he dispenses it in these small bottles. You don't ever need 55 gallons of this oil. This happens to be 500. He sells 1,000 also. It's too thick for me. I'd even like it to be a little bit thinner than this, but not much. Maybe a 250 would be fine for me. Excuse me. And the reason a lot of people use mineral oil and this water and alcohol. I've seen scopes that are 30 years old that have all that other stuff in it, and they're cloudy, or they change colors, or whatever. This won't. This will be fine. Okay. If you have any questions, you can buy this. I'll find a link for it. There's an acrylic supply company that sells this rod. They sell all different shapes of acrylic. Whenever I make a kaleidoscope, I buy acrylic balls from, I don't buy glass. Unless it's a $3,000-$4,000 kaleidoscope, and then I'll put glass in it or lead crystal in it. Otherwise, I don't fiddle with it. This is not expensive. I bought one 36-inch stick years ago, and I've got 4 more pieces about this long, maybe a little bit longer left, plus a bunch of little pieces. I can't think of anything else to tell you. If you got any questions, need any clarification, you know how to reach me. Thank you for listening.